Thank you, Maggie, and Congresswoman Yvette Clarke. Very nice interview. Our next guest is Mike Rogers. He's a former member of Congress from Michigan. He is also a former Army officer and FBI special agent. While in Congress, he chaired the Intelligence Committee and became a leader on cyber and national security policy. He is now the incoming chairman of the not-for-profit Mitter Corporation and director of IronNet Cybersecurity. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, okay, in 2018, you said America is in a cyber war, and I'm not convinced we're winning. It's 3 years later. Are we winning?
No, unfortunately not. You know, we're the big behemoth we know as the federal government is just a slow-moving enterprise. And that slow-moving enterprise is having a hard time configuring itself right to actually target the cyber problem in an effective way across the whole of government, number one. And number two, our adversaries have not been waiting for us to catch up. They're continuing to improve their tradecraft in cyber war. They've been a lot more aggressive. We've seen a lot more from the Chinese, even attacking certain aspects of our military and trying to do new techniques that would make it very difficult for us to be successful in an armed conflict. So they're putting the gas on. We are starting to get interested, and I think that's the difference, unfortunately.
In an interview with 60 Minutes, the Fed chief, Jay Powell, said what keeps him up at night is cyber. You know, what do you think are the preeminent threats, either sectors, countries? What keeps you up at night?
Well, and my partner in Congress at the time, Dutch Rufusberger, we used to say cyber was keeping us up at night back as early as 2006. And guess what? It hasn't changed. It's only gotten worse. So it still keeps me up. And it's because, you know, moving the pieces in the federal government is not really addressing the threat. And we've got to be really careful about knowing the difference. And I'm really happy that Congresswomen like Yvette Clarke are kind of on it and they're paying attention to it. This is helpful. It'll get resources, it'll get attention, it'll get answers. It'll help get the behemoth federal government trying to find ways to keep ahead of this. But sometimes our ability to tell the private sector what to do and what the government is helping them do are two different things. And we're going to have to answer that question. Do you want your federal government to help protect private networks in a way that we know they have capabilities to do? Today, the answer is no. And that has consequences. So all of that keeps me up. If you think about ransomware, it's getting better. It's getting more sophisticated. It's been around a while, but we were watching it improve. So think about it. In 2019, $11 billion cost to the economy, $11 billion. By 2021, it was $20 billion. The average payment's about $233,000, about 19 days on average, a company gets taken offline. And the remediation cost is somewhere around $1.8 million. So you start adding that across the economy, that is a huge, huge factor. And so what worries me, what keeps me up at night, is that our adversaries are starting to understand you don't have to attack the National Security Agency or the CIA or even the Pentagon, even though they do. We just have to make sure that we're disruptive in their economy. So if we ever wanted to throw the switch, we can turn the lights out. We can cause businesses to absolutely shut down. That part worries me. You have to look at this the way our adversaries are looking at it, not the way we want to treat it. And they're looking at it as this is part of their national security strategy. They want to prep the battlefield if they ever have to engage the United States anywhere in the world. How do you do that? You cause us a lot of problems in cyberspace with private sector companies, with certain military aspects and movements. All of that is in their planning and in their toolbox. And again, what keeps me up at night is I don't believe we're ready to push back on that at every level that they're pushing on us. That's something to be concerned about.
I want to pass it over to my colleague, Maggie, who knows a lot about cyber and is a great reporter for us. Maggie, you have a question for the congressman.
Thank you so much for joining us, Congressman. And, you know, I wanted to ask you, yes, thank you. I wanted to ask you about the country that's been on everyone's lips in cybersecurity this year, which is Russia. I know that the Biden administration has taken a series of actions in order to counter some of this Russian cyber aggression, you know, including President Biden meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. But do you think that the Biden administration has gone far enough in terms of responding to some of these attacks that are either, you know, from the Russian government or at least from cyber criminals that are being harbored by Russia?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the Biden administration has had a forward-leaning cyber efforts toward our adversaries, Russia. But the biggest answer to that, I think, is self-evident if we've gone far enough as a country, is name the consequences for Russia engaged in the behavior that they've had. Yeah, you'll get that chirping cricket in the back corner of the room because there is really been no effective consequence for their actions. And so think about it. Their Navy is pretty much fallen apart. They have some pretty good quality submarines. And so if they're going to project power around the world, they're doing it through their special forces, number one, and they're doing it through cyber and their other espionage and information operations, which is all part of their cyber operations. And they've been massively impactful. And so I argue until we can start bleeding their nose a little bit and showing consequences to their cyber activities, and I'm not talking about armed engagement, I am talking about making it more difficult. And when they do something that kind of gets under, that has an impact in the United States, think about information operations against the 2016 election or solar winds. That was, candidly, it wasn't a disruption operation. It was an absolute brilliant espionage operation. And so they weren't trying to disrupt things. They were trying to steal things. So that is something that both governments do. But disruption, where they try to get into our electric grid, maybe to turn some things off, that's the kind of time, or information operations where they're trying to sow chaos in the United States, we must be more aggressive against all of our adversaries to let them know we're not going to tolerate.
Congressman, as far as cooperation, you've served in Congress, the Intelligence Committee chair at the FBI, now at MITRE. What frustrates you? What do you think we could be doing a lot better, whether that's federal-state coordination, maybe it's working with our allies against countries like China, North Korea, and Russia? What is something that you tell your former colleagues in Congress, this is what we got to do?
Yeah, having meetings doesn't solve a problem. It's a method. It's a tool to get to a problem. And so we have the same problem that we looked at back when I became chairman in 2010 about ability to share information in real time. And this is, again, a question. It was so distorted. If you remember the whole Snowden incident, he made it sound like the NSA was, reading every email and doing things that simply were not true. But the narrative got ahead of the reality and the facts. And it really slowed down U.S. efforts to have this real-time sharing of threat information. So what I mean by that is sometimes the government knows what certain threat vectors are. They know what that code looks like or variants of that code looks like. And what if we could share in real time? If company A in California could put it into share in real time, machine to machine, meaning no human looks at it, and says, I'm getting hit with this thing. The government looks at that and says, we're going to spread that around across the country so nobody else gets hit by that thing. And that was the goal back then. We're still not there yet. And part of it is, if you're a company, and this is where I keep pleading with my former colleagues, you have to understand companies don't want to share information with our Department of Homeland Security. They don't want to share information with the U.S. government, period. They might do it with the NSA because they know they believe that they have the ability to lock it down. But they're very concerned about that. They have shareholders. They have all the other kinds of things. One committee in Congress is saying we should punish them for getting hit with ransomware. One committee is saying, no, we should help them. If it's very confusing if you're a business out there who isn't in the business of cybersecurity, right? You're producing cars, let's say. And so you want to be able to build the best cars in the world at the best price in the world. You're not really thinking about how complicated it is to share threat information that might shut down my car company or stop me from getting parts to build a car. Well, they think about all those things. And so until we get this right, until we decide in America, do you want your federal government to help protect companies who are being attacked by the Chinese, the Russians, the North Koreans, and the Iranians, and now others at a very high level? Do we think that the federal government should help protect our networks from that? Right now, again, as I said, the answer is still no. And so how do we get this done? We can do this and protect privacy. This notion that you either have to have privacy or security is wrong. You can have both. And I argue you can't have privacy until you have security. And so we just haven't gotten there yet. We've got to work this out. We have to quit talking about it. We have to quit admiring the problem. We have to, exalting the problem. We now need to really sit down and say, okay, we're going to have to find a way forward. Our adversaries are attacking the United States every single day. They're attacking our private sector. They're attacking our deployed military and our intelligence officers around the world. We really need to decide if we're going to stand up and unify our effort here to do it. That idea of a collective defense, and there are some private companies doing it. IronNet is one, about how we collect data and share the threat information in a way that's meaningful. The federal government needs to get in on that.
Congressman, we run out of time, but thank you so much. You're definitely, your stuff on this, and you can put it in a way that people understand. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.